In the final moments of the tragedy Oedipus Rex, the king gouges out his eyes. He does this not to hide from a physical threat, but because the metaphysical awareness of the truth is too much for his mind to carry. Philosophers describe this as a saturated phenomenon. It is an event that carries an intensity of intuition so blinding that the human intellect cannot find the space to display it. The data of the world simply overflows the capacity of the observer. This peril, the danger of seeing what cannot be unseen, is the core of cosmic horror. H.P. Lovecraft built a genre on the idea that hidden, incomprehensible knowledge is a burden that leads directly to isolation or madness. For most of history, this weight of profound sight was reserved for prophets and tragic protagonists. It was a specialized curse. Modern technology changed that. It democratized the oracle. Today, the entire population has been forced into the archetype of the burdened seer. We consume a constant volume of global crises and intimate psychological data that our biology cannot filter. We are attempting to process the homogenized diversity of the entire world through a brain built for a small village. We are living in a chronic state of psychological overexposure. We call it staying informed, but the weight of it functions more like a slow-acting trauma. According to cognitive load theory, our working memory is a narrow bottleneck. It can hold only a few units of information at once. When we face a chaotic influx of digital data, the system hits a hard biological limit and breaks down. Doom scrolling exploits this by removing all friction, creating a circular dopamine loop that bypasses conscious choice, leading to technostress and emotional paralysis. We see the sharpest edge of this in professionals like open-source investigators and newsroom copy takers. Their jobs require actively hunting through the darkest, most graphic parts of the internet to verify the news. Viewing distressing, raw content without boundaries creates specific medical consequences. It leads to secondary trauma and sub-threshold PTSD, a state where you carry the symptoms of a survivor without ever being at the scene. Whether it is the professional investigator or the casual scroller, the result is the same: a biological failure to process the saturated phenomenon of modern life. Beyond the digital feed, the same overload occurs in our physical interactions. Carl Jung identified the introverted intuitive as a type of person who naturally perceives the repressed psychological realities of every person in the room. Jung called this a dangerous discovery. Social cohesion depends on masks, unspoken agreements to ignore obvious flaws. Perception strips those masks away. When you see clearly what others refuse to acknowledge, you become a destabilizing force. Insight leads to isolation. This triggers a defensive mechanism called shadow projection. Rather than integrating their own flaws, people project them onto the person reflecting them. When a group is forced to choose between facing a painful truth or attacking the person reflecting it, they almost always choose the attack. The observer becomes the repository for everything the collective cannot acknowledge about itself. Once a truth is perceived, the human mind cannot unperceive it. It spreads through consciousness, staining observations with the weight of what we know. Because we cannot unknow the truth, we must protect the mechanism of knowing. This requires intentionally reintroducing friction into our lives, deleting apps and breaking the frictionless dopamine loops that lead to overload. We can use concrete grounding techniques like the 5-4-3-2-1 method to pull the nervous system out of the digital feed. By naming what we see, touch, and hear in the physical room, we aggressively re-anchor ourselves in the present. In high-risk workplaces, these boundaries are institutional: shared team viewing, strict session lengths, and removing penalties for seeking help create a framework that protects the investigator from the content. We can view these tactics as necessary architectural boundaries. They safeguard human cognition from a world that produces more data than a single mind can hold. Survival also requires a psychological evolution Jung called individuation. It is the process of becoming an integrated person who can look at the unconscious without being swallowed by it. This begins by recognizing our own shadows first. Acknowledging our own flaws prevents us from using our perception as a weapon of arrogant judgment against society. We must learn to function as a psychological container, possessing the ability to observe a painful truth without absorbing it or feeling the compulsion to fix a broken world. The modern seer must learn to filter the world's blinding light. We must ensure that the truths we perceive illuminate the mind, rather than burning it to the ground.